This is going to be a short video just going over a basic change in an Elm application that I'm currently writing, just to show what the kind of development experience is like in Elm. Basically having an idea, knowing what you want to do, and then making a change in your code and then following the compiler through to make sure that that works and getting back to the point where it compiles and you can check out your new change. Most people who do front-end development will have had experiences like this in JavaScript, in various JavaScript tools and frameworks, etc. But in my opinion, these sorts of things go really nicely in Elm, and it's easier to show people that than it is to describe it. So I haven't made this change before, but what I thought I would do is, I know what I want to do here, so I'll talk through that, and then we'll jump into the code and we'll just make that change and see it compile. It's going to be very small, but it should hopefully be interesting. So the problem here, so the application is just a very small retro board type thing. And the problem here is in the groupings section where you're grouping items together, I have added a checkbox that allows you to select an item to be grouped. And my problem is combining an item when there's only one item, that doesn't really make sense. So what I want is for it only to actually show the combine option if you have grouped at least two things. So let's have a quick look in the code for that. So the way I would look to start this is I would look at the function that I'm dealing with at the lowest level, which in this case is the grouping card function, and I would think, okay, what information does that now need to do what I want it to do? So at the moment it takes an item, just a discussion item, which is the types there, it's not that interesting, a boolean, and it returns an element. I'm using Elm UI, it returns an element. Now that is the item, the boolean is representing is checked. Now what I actually need is another boolean value, and I need that extra boolean value to tell me, should I, or can this item be combined? Is it possible to combine this item with any other item? Now that of course is going to be a boolean value as well. I don't want to do two booleans next to each other, or in fact really I don't want to do two booleans as arguments, because it's too easy for those to it would be too easy for those to get mixed up. I could accidentally send can be combined instead of is checked, and I don't really want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that second argument and make it into a record for is checked, which is still going to be a boolean value, and I'm also going to have can be combined, which is also going to be a boolean value. And this way there's no way for me to get those two things mixed up. Oh well, okay, it's a lot harder for me to, I could still just type it wrong, but it's a lot harder for me to get that mixed up. So what I'm going to do is hit save, and when I hit save, immediately the compiler is going to say, well, is checked is this record, which I've just said it is, but checkbox needs the first argument to be bool. We can see that is here because checkbox takes a boolean value to say whether it's checked or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to destructure this to take is checked first of all. Now when we do that, we hit save, and it's saying that the argument that we're sending into this function is now wrong. Now we can either look at that first, or we can add in the thing that we want to do. So we could go into that section in on line 589, and we could follow the compiler and say, okay, well now we need to send the right thing in. Maybe we should do that just for demonstration purposes. What we can do here is say, okay, well now we're sending the wrong thing in here, because this is going to give us a boolean value, but what it needs is that record that we mentioned earlier. So to start with, let's just turn this into a record. So let's do is checked, which is what we have just said it needs, and hit save, and now it'll say that it is missing the can be combined field, which we know it is. You know, we've just said that. We've only added the is checked argument here. So now we need to add can be combined. So let's do that. Don't need to do too much formatting because we're using Elm format, so it's going to format and save anyway. So let's just start off by saying can be combined equals false, and then we should see the build succeeded. So now we're back to a point where the build compiles, and there's no point in us going and looking at it because we know that it's not going to have changed because we've just re-implemented the same thing we had before. But we could look at it if we wanted to, so let's just very quickly go and import that. This is just the state from where we were previously. So now we're back to where we were before, but we've still got the same underlying thing that the thing I want to do still hasn't been done because we haven't actually made any change except for to the data that's being passed in, and we're not actually using that now. So can be combined. What we want here is to say, well, if there are at least 2 selected items, then anything that is checked can be combined. So first of all, we now need is checked in 2 places. So let's very quickly put that into here. So let's do is checked equals, and we can just copy that or move it rather. So we can do that, and our item can be combined if the item is checked and there are at least 2 selected items. So let's just do that. If is checked and in fact, so selected items is a maybe, which means it may or may not have a value. So what we're going to do first of all is check to make sure that that's not got nothing in it. So case selected items of nothing. Oops. And if there's nothing in there, then we know that it can't be this item can't be combined. It's just not possible. There are no items. Otherwise, if it's got a list of items, so let's call items list, oops, then we want to check to see if items list list.length items list greater than 1. And now that should give us everything we need. So now we should have all the information that we need because we're passing in whether or not the card should be checked. We're also passing in whether or not it can be combined. So let's jump back up to that function. And let's also grab our can be combined. Apologies again for my typing. And so we're going to do the combine items if is checked and can be combined. Now if I hit save, the build should compile, which it has. And if we again re-import our state from earlier, now you can see it doesn't appear if we've only got 1 thing checked, but they do appear if we've got 2 things checked. So, and again, if we just went down to 1, then we shouldn't have anything at all. So that is everything. Now, obviously, that was me stumbling around a little bit, but you should be able to see from that what it's like to have an idea about what you want to do, think about the data that you need, and then put that into place by following the compiler and seeing what it said to actually, help you along your way.